All right, today we are going to be talking about different types of note-taking that we do. And so for note-taking, what strategies do you all use to help you take notes during class, when your teacher is talking, or during your homework, during your reading assignments that you do for different classes? Johnny, what do you do? Good. It's good to take notes on the key vocabulary words that you run across in your text, when you see those bold or highlighted words, depending on the text you're using, and writing down the definition. Do any of you draw a picture to match what the definition is, or just a key picture to help you remember or identify those words later on? Good, I'm glad to hear that one of you does that, and that's a great strategy to use. What else do any of you do? Melissa. Good. Taking notes by typing them is also a great strategy. If your handwriting isn't so great, you can make sure that you have clear notes. You can import and copy and paste sometimes if something isn't making sense, and ask your teacher about it later. So taking notes on your computer is a great strategy. Does anyone else do anything different? No? Well, another strategy we're going to learn about today is Cornell Notes. How many of you have heard of Cornell Notes? No one? That's okay. We're definitely going to learn about Cornell Notes today. So I want everyone to take out their notebook and a pencil, and I will pass out an article about genetics to you that we're going to practice taking Cornell Notes with today. So I'll give you a minute while I set up my whiteboard. In your notebook, I want you to draw something very similar to this. You should cut it in half, your paper in half with a line down the center, and the bottom part should be left as one big piece together. Good, I like that you put your name on your paper. I like that you put the date on the paper. I'm going to do that too, because that's a great strategy to help you with taking notes. So today we're going to talk about genetics, and we're just reading a short, very simple article about genetics. With genetics, we're going to take notes because it's not something that we hear about and talk about every day. It's not something that you can easily remember. There's lots of big, different vocabulary words, and we want to remember every key fact, an important fact that is going to teach us about genetics. So when we take Cornell Notes, this is one way to use or to be taking notes successfully and remembering key components about what you're doing. On the left side of the column, you will be writing down key facts or key words or a question that helps you remember what you write on the right side of the column. Now, when we're taking notes as we read, we're only going to start on the right side of the column, and that's where we write our detailed notes. So when we come up with a vocabulary word that we need to remember, or if we come up with a important fact or a person's name and what they did, those are the things that we want to write in the right side of the column. We won't touch the left side or the bottom side of the column until we're done taking notes and reading the article. Does that make sense? Does anyone have any questions? All right, so here's your article, and it is called What's on Your Genes. We are going to take turns reading the article aloud together, and as you read, we will pause, we will talk about what things maybe you each wrote down, we will discuss what key important facts, that way if you miss that, maybe it's something you would like to write down on the right side of your paper. So I want you to turn to the first page of the article. Who would like to read? Johnny, you go ahead and start. All right, Johnny, what are some key important things that you think, after reading it out loud, that we should have written down? And those of you who were listening and taking notes, what are some things you did write down? Good. So we talked about chromosomes. And what are chromosomes? That's a key vocabulary word that was mentioned in our article. Good, so right off to the right, I'm going to write chromosomes. And what was the definition again? Thank you, Melissa. It's a single piece of coiled DNA. What else was important in our article? We talked about the methyl groups. What's a methyl group? Who remembers what a methyl group is? If you didn't take notes on this, this should be something that you're writing down. Good, so the methyl group is a chemical cluster, each made of 1 carbon and 3 hydrogen atoms. Thanks, Melissa, for reading that out loud again. So you should have the definition of those written down. Who would like to continue reading? Those are important things that we determined for the first little bit. What's the next bit? Joe, go ahead and you keep reading for us. Good. What are some important things that someone else wrote down today from what Joe just read? Good, the agouti gene. So you should be writing agouti. What do we know about the agouti gene? We know that it controls fur color. Good. We know that it controls the feeling of fullness after eating. What else does it control? You're right, it doesn't control anything else, but they do know that it is something that they've been studying in mice. So you might also want to put in here, studies in mice. Good. What else do we have to read? Who would like to read next? Melissa, go ahead. Good. What else should we have written down after what Melissa says or read to us? Good. We learned about the study that they did in New South Wales. So New South Wales study. What did they do in the New South Wales study? We want to know. That's definitely something important that we should be writing down in our summary. What else? They talked about how babies can inherit a certain change, something that geneticists have never studied before, a certain type of change. And what type of change? Good, change in diet. So they really focused on diet in this study, the diet of mice and how they inherit that from their parents. Good. So we're going to pause. How do you feel about these notes so far? What do you think? Before we keep reading and practicing, what do you think about these notes? Does that seem to be helping limit what you're taking notes on by pausing after each section and rephrasing and re-looking at? Good. Before we continue reading, we are going to look at the left side of the column. The left side of the column is where you get to write a question or a phrase that is going to help you remember what you summarized in each section that we've currently read. So we have the first section up here. What did we primarily read about? So our phrase might be genetic basics. Those are the primary things that they were studying and needed you to know before we read anything else about the article. You need to understand the chromosomes and the methyl group. What else in our second section? So the primary word, phrase, question is the agouti gene. That's what we spent the whole next section about. Why do you think we write down these key phrases or questions on the side of our paper? Why do you think that's important, Melissa? Good. So we know that if I'm coming across a word like this again on my homework, maybe to answer questions later, and I read agouti gene and I say, what is that? I forgot what that is. I can go back in my notes and easily find agouti gene on the left side of my paper. And at the end, I can go over to the right side and line it up and say, oh, it talks about fur color and the feeling of fullness, and that gene is what controls that. Good. What else can we continue doing? What else should we continue doing? Good. Going for the very last section that we've read, what's our key word, our key phrase pertaining to this section? So the New South Wales study. Your question might even be, what does the New South Wales study do? So if you don't want to just write your phrase, you could write the question, what does the New South Wales study do?